When you, I
One
just
second.
switched it over. What up, everybody? Chris is upside down.
I was wondering why I couldn't hear Tyler.
Can you not hear me still?
Now I can hear Tyler.
Okay, I'm gonna do our little intro because I've already started the stream because
Oh,
I don't listen. So, what up, everybody? Welcome to the Alternative Black Podcast. I am your host, Tyler, joined always by your other host, because I still haven't figured out my script for the beginning, Chris. What's up, man?
what's going on?
You know,
I'm here.
just another day in paradise. It is Friday evening, so it's not the evening of Friday. It's Friday Eve, is what I meant to say.
Okay, I was going to say, what is going on?
Yeah, no, there's just a lot not working. Ooh, the fridge door opens wide enough for me to grab my beer.
That's fancy. I have to leave the room. Well, barely leave the
Yeah,
room, but leave
barely.
the room.
Yeah, no, my fridge is like here. Let's see if I can swivel enough. This blur
Ah,
is the fridge. Since I am in the dungeon, I figured I should start blurring my camera until I figure out how to
make it go away.
make
You
it
should
make it
have tried,
nicer.
you should have tried the New Age Office one. You know, like the canned New Age Office where it's like an open floor plan.
Right. Oh, God. But I think we're just gonna get like a nice little curtain back here and her, as it
So
were. That's a technical term.
is the technical term for.
Yep.
I would
Uh,
have never.
Today we're going to be talking about some Tennessee regulations, some proposed bills, I believe, to become laws in the state of Tennessee, as well as talking about a Pennsylvania first, some Black history that has happened. We have talked about that briefly, but now you have had the opportunity to come down to Philadelphia and experience it yourself. So we're going to just talk about kind of what that experience was like now that we've both had an opportunity to go to said spot. But before any of that, that's right. What you drinking?
Today I am starting off with. Ooh, it's so naughty. It gets blurred. It's getting sensitive.
Don't look.
Shield your eyes. I have the local lager from two locals in Philadelphia. And I think Tyler had this on our last episode, if not two before that.
Yeah.
So just it's a 4.5%er, nice and light. It's named after their father's birthplace in Liberia, which is just a really cool, I think, just foundation for crafting a beer.
Chris? Well, as I try to figure out what happened with Chris, I will talk about my beer briefly. Today I am drinking Local Love. I believe I've also had this one on the show already, but because I wanted to talk about two locals and it was the easiest thing for me to pick up, that was two locals. I grabbed some Local Love, Love City, two locals collaboration beer, pineapple, resiny. It kind of reminds me of like if you made a hazy West Coast IPA. Because it has that bitterness, but still some of that juice. But is Chris back yet? Oh, Chris is back and upside down. Amanda's laptop shut down. Who is Amanda, and why do you have her laptop?
I've been accosting Amanda. All right, are we back yet? Can you hear me?
Yeah. I was just going over what I was drinking. I believe I had this on the show as well. The Naughty Locals. Local Love, IPA. And I was just saying it kind of reminds me of a very like if you took a West Coast IPA and you hazified it.
So like a New England IPA.
No, because I think the pininess is still like with the notes that you
Mm.
get out of the resiny flavor that they were attempting, which I think they did very well. I think
So a
that
good New England IPA.
a what?
A good New England
Yeah,
IPA.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. But I really enjoy this beer.
What's the ABV on that one?
ABV on this one undisclosed 7%.
7%. So like right in that range where it's acceptable as a beer by Bruising Banner.
just
I,
it
I
just
would
clears
have
the
maybe,
threshold.
yeah, just clips the threshold, and it's still about 3% lower than what Mac considers a beer.
About 7% lower.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah, that for their standard, but for it to be considered just like you did a beer on purpose, it at least needs to be double digits, or else you mess something up.
Right. Oh, I forget that my little cursor shows up now on this. I was experimenting with some new buttons because I have ADD, and if I see a button, I have to press it, which is why I'll never be president.
It'd be like Fry, where he's like, "Don't press the red button," which this one,
This button. Um. Yeah. So I believe we both. Well, I've had this one on the show, and I'm pretty sure I gave it a very high rating. But what would you give the Lofa Lager?
I gave the Lofa Lager as I was frantically attempting to pull up Untapped here because I knew this question was coming.
Damn
I believe I
unpredictable.
gave it a 4.5.
Okay.
Um, yeah, the Lofa was a 4.5. I think it's like just really well done, very approachable. I think this is like this is that lager you give someone trying to get into craft beer, you know?
For
Like
sure.
I would say if you're in the Philly area, go to Love City and try the Lofa Lager. Even if you're not a craft beer person, I think that's probably the most approachable, one of the most approachable craft beers, you know, out there,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the Philly area, especially from these guys who we're about to get into. Speaking of approachable, go approach two locals
No, no,
and just,
they're 100% approachable. They're usually both there at some point, especially towards the end of the night, which is just happens to be when I end up going. Uh, but very approachable. They're just there at the end of the bar usually, but helping out as well. And so
yeah,
if you ever get the chance out, make sure that you know congratulate them for what they did, as well as talk to them about the concept behind it. Talk to them about you know the process, because technically, while this is the first black brewery to open up in in the state of Pennsylvania, you know it's not by any means the first attempt at doing this. You know,
yeah,
there's
it's
Harris family. Mac's been doing his thing for a while as well as everybody else that's black and craft beer in the state of PA. But this is definitely history.
it is history. And we've talked about it a long time in terms of like why can't these people find storefronts? Why can't you find space? You know, it's such a difficult thing, and usually just comes down to the fact that you know when breweries open up space, usually it's because they either have connections or they just have money. They
Right.
just have money. So it's like, yeah, so we decided to open up you know, in January, blah, blah, whatever, as if it was like not a big to do. Meanwhile, you know, you have folks that have been attempting for a long time to get a space, and it was a struggle and a challenge, and it continues to be a challenge. So it's no small deal that they got their space. And I think it's really cool that they're on a campus, on a college campus, essentially. That's the
Yeah.
dream. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we'll skip over Tennessee, like is usually a good idea, and we'll come back to it later. But let's just talk about it. On Monday, you were
Yeah.
down. You made the journey down to City of Brotherly Love, and we got an opportunity to meet at two locals and try the Gambit of Beer experience. Get to see where it's at, what it looks like, have that whole experience. So, kind of talk to me about your experience when you pulled up and walked in for the first time at Two Locals.
Um, okay. Well, first of all, like I kind of already knew like the area from talking to you, like where it was going to be. So in terms of that, like as expected, like kind of just being like in the heart of stuff, it's right on Market Street. So it's very accessible, literally like a couple blocks off the highway. So I like that. I like how accessible it is. There's parts of Philly that are just not like easily
Right.
accessible, particularly if you're coming from out of the city. But I feel like West Philly is one of those like portions of the city that's like more accessible coming from the rest of the state, obviously, since Philly is literally on like the eastern border. But so there was that. It was a little confusing. Parking wasn't too big of an issue because it was a Monday evening, but it was a little confusing because it's like because it's in this huge building,
Right.
like the street address
Doesn't like
is
necessarily
Market
match
Street,
up.
but it's around the corner. Yeah. So we walked into the lobby of the main building, and he's like, "You're here for the beer place, aren't you?" And he's like, "Around the corner, out around the corner to the right." So then we went around the corner to the right. Walking in, spacious, huge.
Huge,
I don't
right?
know what it was huge. I don't know what I
Huge.
was expecting, but I just loved how spacious it was in there. I loved how I loved the music selection. Like for a brewery, you don't get that ever, right? Um, Black people working behind the bar, um, the lights on in the brewery, and the brewery completely visible in the background of the bar.
That's
Uh,
that was different. That's not normal.
picture Yeah, but it just added to everything because you're able to see it and you're like, wow, this is a huge space. It just made the space feel that much bigger. So awesome location, awesome spot. Like I said, spacious, and then like the beer is just everything I've had from Two Locals has been great. Um, but obviously we can't get all of the stuff they make out here. So to be able to go in there and get some of like these collab beers, pick some of those up, and then try that the Imperial. Was it the Imperial Stout?
Oh, the one with carbon copy. I think it's like toasty or something like that.
The Toasty. Toasty is crazy. So like just trying the collab beers, like everything they make is so good. Uh and then like you alluded to, just um they're there, they're approachable, they're accessible, and they just seem like really cool dudes, to have a beer with. So I'm really excited. They seem like from what you said, the fact that they had the sticker, they had the coaster, they recognize you, they just say, "Oh hey," and then just left. Like they actually kind of opened up to you. Oh, there's the sticker. Oh, here's a coaster. You know, they just seem like really good people and really good for just like the scene in Philly. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do moving forward, what more beer they're going to come out with, what they're going to do for Barrel and Flow. Just really excited for Two Locals right now. And then it just makes me that much more excited for you know, if Mac can get their own space, if Harris family can get their own space, because now we've thought about, oh, what does a PA slash Philly black owned brewery look like? Um, and now we don't have to wonder.
Right? Yeah. Now
And
having like
because
a
it's hit all the expectations, now I'm just like, now I'm ready for the next one. I know it's going to be great. I know like the feel was there. Um, the feel that you'd be looking for, that we've talked about. You know, you walk in, you automatically feel welcome. It's not a numbers game.
no, not
It's
at all. I think that I mean even when you were there, like it
yeah,
I think one becomes more than like five off the bat. It's like already like, whoa, like this is different. This is something like I'm not used to, you know? And not even so I think there's like arguments to be made. Like for instance, when I went to Asheville and I was at like huge places like New Belgium or like Sierra Nevada, right? And these huge monster places, like finding five might not be such a hard game because of the like sheer size of it. But for the space that this is in, it's like big but not big. Like it shares the space with
that
the
is true.
kitchen, right?
It's not like it's massive. It's not like it's a spectacle
It's a
location.
nice like long location, but we have to remember with this, it's a bar and a kitchen, a separate kitchen. And the kitchen
True.
actually has technically, if you look at their section of it, not that it's broken up in that way, like it's just
Yeah,
kiosk, but the way it's built out kind of like says like Liberty Kitchen to locals. And I think they would have more of an equal footing and size if you include the brewery, but because the
sure.
brewery takes up so much space, it doesn't look
Right.
like half and half, right? And so I think that's really interesting too because maybe at maybe what could be said with the kitchen being there is like, okay, well, like who are people like here for? Are they here for like the food, or are they here for the beer? And it's very clear when you walk in that like the beer is the front runner of this place,
True.
and they just have good food with it, you know. And I think that's pretty cool, especially opening up like this because who has control of the music, right? You know, there's things that are very at the forefront here, and I would love to. We need to sit down. We need to talk with them about like everything and the concept in there. I know there's a lot of interviews out and stuff like that already about this space, but I think we have a few questions that we could definitely hit upon to get a better understanding of the space that exists. But it's cool. The number game doesn't have to be played. I think there's something to be said about that. Um, the way that their beer is coming out, you know, it's again to talk about it. It's you know Harris family's been doing the thing, Mac's been doing the thing, but two locals even prior to opening this up has had that reach. Like they've been distributing, and it's just it's been
Like
incredible.
crazy.
Yeah,
Like crazy. I mean, I'm, you know, hour and a half, 2 hours away from Philly, and yet, like, as far as Philly breweries that you see in the stores, Victory and Yards
yards.
are the obvious two that are like giants. But after that, like, I see two locals more than I see Dock Street, more than I see, you know, Love City doesn't get out here. Um,
I think Wissahickon gets out there. No,
is it, uh,
work
Conshohocken does.
Conshohocken Workhorse maybe gets out there.
Workhorse gets out here.
Yeah,
So I like as far as Philly breweries, like the three is probably Victory Yards and Workhorse first,
yeah,
and then it's two locals, honestly. And if we're speaking on like what two locals is and what like realm of the beer industry they fall into, I wouldn't even count like Yards and Victory are kind of like legacy giants.
yeah.
You can't
Like
really compare, right? You can't compare that. And then Workhorse is kind of like in that next tier of they've been around for quite a while.
I'd actually have to look into how long they've been around because I didn't think they were around that long. I just think
Well,
that the
I've been seeing their stuff for years out here.
I would say as long as I've been when I started coming down to Philly for Rec Philly, I
Yeah.
guess like around 2018, 2019, that's when I first started like really noticing Workhorse because they had a
Right.
partnership
So
with them at
they're
that time.
and there again, so that's at least now 6 years
I know, yeah.
established, you know. We're
Um,
talking about we're talking about two locals didn't even have a physical location yet,
right.
physical system. Like they were just putting it out. So I think it's extremely impressive what they've done. And, you know, I know I want to kind of I always
August 2018.
August. So literally they were brand new when you started going down there.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I think that's fair. Like, talking about Workhorse versus like those other guys and versus two locals, like we'll have to go out and see Workhorse. It's by King of Prussia. It's like really not that far, maybe like a mile away. Um, and it's just big. It's a big facility, so it has that like almost Trogs esque type of like feeling when you're going in, and so it's huge in that regard. Um, and I never tried to like heat map. Well, how far out do I see Workhorse? Because they're kind of hit or miss for me. Um, but to locals, I think was the bigger like the heat map and the wow factor because again we're talking about the size of this being maybe a little bigger than Chatty Monks per square foot. Very comparable size though when you think about the upstairs and downstairs of that,
Yeah,
and we're not even talking about the brewing house or anything like that. But I, I I think it's just really impressive because even Love City, right? Love City is much bigger than uh, two locals, but two locals has consistently just been like pushing their shit out, and it's crazy.
right. And I guess that gets into more of like the business side of things on what they chose to prioritize to build themselves up versus what Love City might prioritize
Yeah,
as an established business. And I think that's an interesting conversation to have with both of them.
yeah.
Um, some insights on, why they choose these different ways, what's
Mm-hmm.
working for them this way versus what would be working for two locals. I think in two local situation, which would, in my mind would be when we're starting to hit the ground, would be in kind of that similar realm. Why they went and did it this way, the way they did it, because it looks like it's extremely successful the way they've done it. And I think for me to see their beer out so far, like that reach, like it just builds hype. You know, I think it just builds hype. It builds notoriety, and even if it's not getting you people right now in the Philly area, like I'm in Philly, got to go to two locals. I'm sure there's plenty of people, especially in that are in the industry throughout the state, that are like, when I'm in Philly next, I got to get to two locals. You know what I mean? Like the hype is built, and the beer's there. It's not just hype. It's not a mystique. Like it's there. You can taste it in your local distributor.
And what's cool is like they're also they're open all the whole week, right? And that kind of seems like a given in some circumstances, but like especially in like the beer world,
That's
that's not
big.
that's huge. Um, the people that I see open all like every day, all day, are again you're talking about yards, you're talking about victory. After those two and Love City, like after those three people, you're fucking like hard pressed to be able to like, oh, I'm gonna walk over to such and such. I think other half is open now like all the time. Urban Village as well,
Yeah,
but it's like Urban Village has a bigger feeling to it, right? Because I think it
it does.
operates as a
Yeah,
restaurant a little more sometimes than a brewery for like all intents and purposes. They make good beer, but it feels more like, oh, I'm walking into like a PJ's, you know?
Agreed. Yeah, it's more brew pub than brewery.
Right. And so it's just like when you think about a place that's doing beer in such an interesting way, especially being a black brewery and taking that chance in an area that doesn't necessarily have stuff open on a Monday or a Tuesday. It's a big risk. We were in there on a Monday. It wasn't packed like I'm used to seeing it. Um,
Yeah,
but I was still like, it's a pretty good turnout. And he's just like, this is probably one of their better Mondays. But they already have a plan for what they're gonna do. Like the approach wasn't, we think we're just gonna like keep it closed on Mondays and Tuesdays now. Like the plan is to try to build that presence. And for a lot of industry folks as well. So for instance, Dock Street doesn't open on Monday, right? So
yeah.
if you're an industry worker but you work every single day and then you get off on Mondays and Tuesdays but no one else is fucking open on Mondays and Tuesdays.
You go to the place that's open. Yeah,
Right.
no, it's like if you can do it, you do it. Especially like it's something weird about certain big cities where it's like so much stuff is just closed on a Monday. So you get this type of thing. And you're right, like they just do any type of event or do an industry night,
Hmm.
you know.
And they're not currently, like from what I know, they're not really like, hey, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. It's just like come out and watch the game with us, or like that's been the vibe to it. Oh, but we were talking about the music, but even what they have on TV is like what they had Atlanta on, I think, when we were there.
Yeah, Atlanta, yeah, like just
Atlanta Sports Sports Center and Dragon Ball Z.
that's right, Dragon Ball Z. They had Dragon Ball Z on. Like it's just such a unique take. And that's like the one thing that we always like wish we got more of in craft beer is in these spaces is just that that very unique feel that I feel like it's not like every place is cookie cutter, but like you want the uniqueness, you know what I mean?
Well, you bring up something there was an interesting conversation that was happening at work today, that I was like overhearing, and it was talking about what do they call it? The Yeezy Pods, like the sock shoes that Kanye has. Like again, Kanye West like his Yeezys or whatever, all those like stupid shoes that like sell for fucking way too much. Well, these Easy Pods, essentially these socks, were like are down to like $20 now, right? And so he's just like, I've never bought his products or anything like that, but the $20, let's see what it is. I'm gonna get them. And he's like, but at this point, I'm buying socks, and at another point, they're gonna basically sell me on walking around barefoot. And so they got into a conversation about influencer culture, basically like what you're being sold, like essentially with like the NBA, NFL, like these people are walking in and what they're wearing isn't by mistake, like a lot of these
Right.
people are getting like paid to walk in with this because you're paying attention, you think it's them, and so you're starting to buy that. And it's like, however, there's another element to it. It's not just like the marketing that says, oh, we want you to do this and we're going to pay you to do this and we're going to influence what people buy. It's also the other side of that where it's just like, a lot of the black culture that then gets adopted because psychologists, marketers finally like figure it out and like get ahead of it and start positioning it to make money, and how that all works. So to bring it back to the craft beer thing, you know, you brought up, oh, the music they were playing was like perfect. And I feel like there's gonna be a lot of people that walk in and are like, but this is what like breweries are playing. But that's because Billboard 100 caught up to what, culture was playing anyways. Like hip hop became part of that like umbrella. You'll hear more Drake in those places, right? You'll hear more of like
Yeah.
Post Malone
But the
in
thing, like
those, maybe some
it is it sounds similar, but
right.
it's not the same. It's not the exact same song. It's
And
not the exact same
exactly.
one.
And so what happens is there's a very clear difference between what we were just talking about, that cookie cutter, that copy paste,
Yeah.
versus the real McCoy, or like the very like authentic element that is being clone stamped over here, right? And so we walk into two locals and we're like, yes, this is the vibe. We go in with the same people and we go to Shaler's Brewing Company and we're like, but yeah, but they're doing it here. And we're like, fuck no.
Damn, Shaler catching strays. Had a bad experience at Shaler's.
I think it was weird though, because like I went to Shaler's the one time and it was like, yeah, they were playing like all this like hip hop music, like this rap music, but I saw nobody. And like, granted, it is like Berks County, like Mifflin,
Let's say you're in the county.
right? However, then why not just play like fucking country and some shit, right? Like, or like rock. Like you could have gotten away with that, and everybody there still would have liked the fucking music.
True.
So like for me, it that's where it's weird. Is like you're playing the culture with no culture like represented, and
Yeah, it's basically the it's empty calories. Yeah, it is it's putting on a mask, right? There's nothing behind it. It just looks like the same thing, but it doesn't feel like the same thing. I think that's the difference. Like it doesn't feel forced, it doesn't feel out of place. It just feels it's not like they're trying to make a particular vibe of the place. It's just this is who they are, and this is just what is exuding from them. And it's you can feel that particularly because like nothing in there seems to like nothing in there like the mix isn't stereotypical, and I think that's the big part, right? Like you said, what's on TV, it's like we have anime on over here, we have a sport on over here, and then we have a series, a TV show on over here. Like mixing that with a brewery, with the music, that shouldn't go together.
mm,
And because it shouldn't go together, it works better because it's feels like someone's like real taste. Like this is just what we like, instead of this needs to be specifically curated to hit this, this lane, this mainstream popular lane. So I think
exactly. And I think like what it kind of reminds me of, and in all honesty, you got like Dragon Ball Z going on over here. You got the music playing. You got like the movies going and whatever, and it almost feels like if you would almost. It's not completely, but it's like, oh shit, Chris, are you still with me? Chris froze again, and he already dropped off once, and I'm kind of wondering if he's dropping off again. There goes the dog. I'm gonna say it right now if anyone's listening, but I will bring it up again when Chris gets back in here. It's almost as if you had a modern day like Wu-Tang design a brewery, because you got the nerd element, you got the like actual like culture element of it all, and it just kind of feels like anime, rap music. Who else do I think of but Wu-Tang? So I just really enjoy what they're doing. Chris, where are you at? Oh, he dropped out again. But once he gets in, we'll talk about Tennessee, and we'll make the adjustment out and continue on in 2 weeks. But for those of you who don't know, I think he's jumping in again real quick. There we go. He's upside down again. For those of you who don't know, Tennessee is doing some really stupid stuff in an attempt to course correct a law, or I guess, yeah, lack of a law at the moment that allows passengers to drink in the car, which obviously leads to some very questionable situations. And so rather than just saying you can't drink in the car, they have attempted to put in a different law that says, you know what, we're just not going to allow people to sell cold beer to go. So, Chris, I want to get your take on this before you drop out again.
Yeah, my God. Um, so actually, I didn't know that context. So could you repeat like the first portion of that?
Yeah, so Tennessee has something very much like Louisiana and some other places where it's not illegal for you as a passenger to be consuming alcohol in the car, right? Um, and because of that, certain situations have arose where things have become questionable in terms of who all's consuming this in the car, right? So there's been DUIs and the rise of DUIs and everything like that, and they want to try to curb people drinking and driving. And because they have allowed people to drink in the car that is moving, their course of action was, well, we're just going to make it harder for for people to consume alcohol in the car by making the beer that you buy to go warm.
That is so stupid.
Rather than saying nobody in the car can be drinking. If we find evidence that there is open containers in this vehicle, this is one of the times where the Quaker state might get it right.
The Quaker state doesn't get much right when it comes to alcohol, but
if this is what you're trying to avoid, and you're just basically trying to say
Tennessee and New Jersey are really working hard to make us look good.
Like, what is this? Like, it's so dumb.
So, yeah, it's like the type of people that would drink in the car while driving like that, like go to a place, like grab like a 40 or something, or grab a bottle and then crack it while they're driving home. I mean, do they care at that point that it's warm?
No. look, the only
So
people.
let me guess, they're gonna also, but are they gonna also outlaw the ice bags that they sell too?
Right, it's like, I'm gonna pull up on my cooler anyways. I'm gonna have a frozen Yeti anyways. Like it's gonna be ready to go. Maybe not a frozen Yeti, but like a Yeti-esque. I gotta price this right.
Yeah.
However, like, the only people this really doesn't affect are the beers that the people are probably consuming in the car anyway.
Facts. Actually. And what it really affects is craft beer, because how many beers need to stay cold to keep?
That was the mind-blowing thing, because it's like, even after working at Dock Street, even Mary's Six Pack No More started bothering me that they had the beer out on the shelves.
Yeah, it's like not all beer can just sit out on the shelves and be fine. It's not shelf stable like that.
Yeah.
It needs to get put in the fridge.
I think even for us, sometimes when we go there, we would look at the fridge at first, and then we would go to that open spot, and then when we saw something that we're like, oh, that actually sounds good, let's double check if it's in the fridge.
Yeah, exactly. You always double check the fridge. Always double check the fridge.
But like, most of these beers are like, especially craft beers, aren't meant to be shelf life beers. And so even if they are on the even if they're on the shelf, you're supposed to like look and just like double check, when was this canned, right? Like, how much of a like shelf life does this have before it starts becoming questionable? And I think that's also what makes craft beer hard to get into sometimes, is because you have someone that doesn't know better, goes out, sees this on the shelf, gets it, puts it in the fridge, cracks it open, and it tastes weird or off, and doesn't taste like it was originally meant to. So all it's going to do is decline craft beer in Tennessee.
I agree. Decline craft beer in Tennessee. It's not going to decrease drinking. It's just a weird place to go, I guess. Like, logically, it's just an odd place to go to solve a problem. You know what I mean? It's like, this is the problem here's the solution, and you went like over here. It's like they closed their eyes and they threw a dart at the board and it hit somewhere on the wall, and they're like, yeah, okay, let's do that.
And it's not like the majority of states are saying, oh, you know what? as a passenger, you can drink. And Tennessee is just like, oh, you know what? We've had enough of it. There's no real example that we can follow, and we're just gonna like shoot in the dark here. It's like the majority of the U.S. doesn't let that happen, and still sells cold beer. And it's just, oh, you happen to have a bunch of cans at your feet when we open up the car. Maybe there's an issue here. And so I'm like, what made you like? Did you not even say, let's like talk to other
We're not even
legislators?
talking.
Like,
You go to
look, Google.
Google and you type
ChatGPT could
in,
probably give you a better answer.
dude, like, and like, half my job is looking up regulations at this point.
Oh my
I'm
god.
thinking,
Random
yes,
topic, but Philly and the and I gotta find it. It's something about the regulation of the water, like
they're regulating the water.
right,
How
but then
dare they?
I think the energy cost is about to go up. Like Pico is like trying to say that they're gonna give like a spike because something's being regulated by the state and therefore we have to justify the cost here because we're not doing this right. And they're trying to
Yeah, that's
like
bullshit.
I gotta find it though. It was crazy. And it made me think of you, especially if you end up coming down to the Philly area. So
Yeah, fuck Pico and the clickbait
look,
claim.
fuck Pico, fuck
TPL,
PGW, like
UGI,
the parking authority.
parking, the parking authority in particular, any parking authority in particular, fuck them in particular.
I thought PGW was like an actual like city ran like thing, but it's actually like a private entity. Anyway, I'm not getting into this right now. It's stupid shit and it's fucking robbery. Um,
It's highway robbery.
I don't
Fact.
know if we talked to you about the whole like PGW issue that we've had, but
No,
oh, okay, we'll talk about this later. It's maddening. Um,
it's a mad ting, man.
yeah, mad ting. But Tennessee, man, Tennessee.
Tennessee, man. Like, what would you do in this situation?
If I was Tennessee or if I was a brewery,
Do you just call yourself the brewery?
or if I was a brewery.
We're gonna go to North Carolina and open up the brewery.
Debauchery brewery.
Dude, isn't there a beer that kind of has that name? No,
That's probably Stone.
it probably is still. No, if you were a state legislature and you saw the issue that Tennessee's seeing, you have high DUIs.
Mm-hmm.
What would be your course to figure out what could be a solution to the problem?
I mean, okay, so this is what goes through my mind in the first place. It's like, okay, what, where is this happening, right? Is this like happening on highways a lot? Is this happening within like community limits? Like, where is this actually happening? Because then this becomes a question of, is public transport like failing in a way? Like, could this be something that like, oh, this was an easily Uberable, affordable, like opportunities to do something else? And so is it actually the laws that are in place? Is it like this? Is it an infrastructure issue? Like, where are we identifying that this is the issue? What communities? Is there something deeper rooted in this, or is this like something that is actually just a failure, like an oversight, right? So that's where my first like thoughts are going in on this. Two, easy, the easy one is nobody in the car should be drinking. It's that's the gateway, right? Like that's the gateway to the issues, because if I'm in the car with all my buddies and I see all my buddies having like a good time, and I know like 2 to 3 beers isn't really gonna hurt me, like, and then I could just throw the can over to them and say, well, it was them, like, why does it smell like alcohol? Oh, I mean,
Yeah,
that they're just having a good time. I'm just trying to get them there, he spilled on me. That's why I smell like it. There's too many variables. There's too many risks. Like it's stupid. So that's another thing too. So that's what I'm looking at as well in terms of like, well, how do we just?
You're looking at statistics you're looking deeper into the statistics, like where is it happening, what instances is it happening, and let's target those first.
What time of day? Maybe it does become a thing where it's just like, nobody's getting into trouble at like noon to 5, but as soon as happy hour hits for some reason, like it's going up. So you know what? We're gonna, as step one of this, we're gonna just stop it at 5 o'clock. We're at 4:30. You can no longer do this, right? Like you can no longer purchase this cold beer. If we really think that's the issue, right? See what happens there. More likely than not, there's a slight decrease, but nothing like substantial. So then maybe you have to think about just getting rid of it. Is this a issue of legislators not willing to lose their voter base? Like, is it actually that strong that if somebody does that, they'll get thrown out, and then you have a Trump-esque opposition come through who's just like, you know what? My ticket item is going to be, don't put a tax on our beer, like on our drivers, like don't limit our drivers,
Don't
because
limit our
because what I'm essentially seeing is like they're like, okay, if we say the people in the car can't drink, we're fucked, but if they can't get cold beer to drink, we don't think they're smart enough to put 2 and 2 together. So now do the politicians in Tennessee just think that low of their voter base?
Yes.
Probably.
Well, isn't Tennessee the exceedingly racist group of politicians out there? Like, wasn't there something? What was it? Wasn't it them giving something to Paramore instead of?
Yes! Holy shit! I forgot about
Yeah,
that. They give it to this. It was like the first award for
you
this
need that
black
to watch
artist,
the
and there was a bill for that to like recognize her, and it was blocked. They said fuck that, and then they gave the same honor to Paramore. Paramore said fuck that, we are declining it. But holy shit, I saw that today. Did I send that to you? Did we just happen to both see it? That would be great. Yeah, I forget where I saw that. Oh, that's gonna kill me because that was
headline.
great. It was a headline. It really
It was just a
was.
random headline. Like I think it was like today or yesterday or something. Like when I have like on my work computer when I get a new tab, it just gives me headlines, even though I
Yes.
didn't ask for it. And that popped up, and it's like because Paramore like rejected,
No, they said fuck you.
yeah, they rejected the honor because it's like, well, we didn't win.
Well, like
Like honor the person who just won
to talk about allyship in a way, like how do you show up? That's one of the ways that you show up is by,
by being someone's paramour in the situation.
yes.
Sorry, but like so Tennessee is just for one, they are just not the group to be looking to for guidance on how to run anything. It seems to me like and in an odd way with the Paramore thing, you can at least say, well, that's a ridiculous decision because they're racist, and logically, I can connect the dots there. Oh, they're just terrible people. It's harder when with this with this beer thing when it's so illogical that it's so dumb that you're like, there's no way people in power like this can connect those dots logically and it makes sense in their mind. Like to me, that's even crazy. It's harder to understand, it's harder to grasp that they could go that direction.
Yeah.
At this point, we're pretty much like, oh, it was racism. Of course it was. Okay. Didn't see that one coming. But by the way, I picked out the local
No, I find it hard because I think there's a part of me that always wants to do like not a benefit of the doubt, but like I generally want to like think that people, especially people like politicians, yeah, there might be like some ulterior ulterior motive in terms of like, oh, this benefits me, you know, business wise or like whatever wise. Like this benefits me, right? There's something to gain from being here.
True.
But like
In this,
the very rare instances where I feel like, you know, you have a Putin, you have like Hitler, you know, like where you have these very like isolated cases of holy shit, this was just a really fucked up person and actually really wanted bad things to happen to other people. I don't think for the majority of this, people are like, or leave, are conscious of the crazy shit. Now go back to civil rights, go back like, well, before that, like to slavery and all that other stuff. Like, yes, there's definitely this like power trip, and like you had to know, like that you were just morally wrong and corrupt. Here it becomes a little more insidious, I think, because of the institutional racism. I think it's because, you know, there are things that you were just taught as a southerner. Uh, there are these like things that have been so ingrained into, you know, this is the way it is, and you don't actually break it down anymore because like this is what you've seen, this is what you've been taught, and if you were to actually be challenged on it, and you were open to being challenged on it, I think a lot of people actually would be like, holy shit. But because people aren't open to challenge, open to failure a lot, it becomes a lot harder. It becomes a lot, you know, like I'm a good person. I'm a like all my constituents are behind these things I want to do, but because we're all within the same culture, we haven't left this bubble, we haven't been exposed. Critical race theory has been expelled from our like, teaching, and we just all can't understand why you're trying to take away our state rights.
yeah, yeah, states' rights,
Yeah,
which was the original reason for the
right. The
Civil
state rights
War.
for slavery.
Yeah,
So when you can't see that state rights are the state rights to slavery, I think that's where it becomes very interesting. And so bringing it all back, it's I don't I don't know if something's happening here where they're just not able to see beyond their own nose.
that's
And
true.
I might just be giving them too long of a leash here, though.
Yeah, I mean that's. I think it's. I just think it's incompetent people who also happen to be racist.
Yeah.
Because it's like, how do you want to lose? How do you want to lose a majority of like your voter base very quickly? How about like ostracize most of the people just based on their race and like openly too? It's not even like you just like you talked about the reason that it's so difficult now to talk about it is because it's so ingrained in the culture and in the upbringings of certain people through generations to the point where it's not seen as some crazy thing. It's just seen as the way things are. And it's been slowly massaged and watered down to where it's palatable for people that it doesn't affect. And so they aren't able or willing to see what it is. And so that's what we have here. But like here, it's like it's incompetent because it's so blatant. And that's where it's the incompetence. And that's why I think it's more incompetence than anything else, because back to my original question on it, which was, you know, what would you do if you were faced with the same problem? And
I would say you can't drink in the car, and I'd probably not get elected again.
right. And but also you might because the older generation would generally agree with that decision, I think. Generally people, you know, parents are going to push for these types of things.
Right. I again, going back to the nuanced answer that I had was, where is this happening? Why is this happening? When is this happening? Right? Like there are a lot of, and I have secretaries, I have interns, I have like all these other people to like find those answers for me, right? I don't even have to be the one
You
leading
don't have
the
to do the work.
right. I just have to ask it. I have to be like, well, why, when, and where, and how? Can we actually track back like where these people bought their last thing from that we would consider the catalyst to said event? Like there's a lot of factors into here, and maybe it doesn't make sense for us to get into it because like we have other financial issues. There's other budgetary items that we need to resolve here as well. But again, then the quicker answer isn't to say get your beers out of the fridge and put them on the in the middle of the aisles. It's stop drinking in the fucking car. Oh God, Chris, if you died again, did you? This is the end of the episode. Oh, this is funny. We'll have to figure this out. There's definitely something to be said though here when it comes down to what should these. Oh, he definitely died again. How should this be resolved? How should this be handled going forward? I did appreciate the questions in regard to what would you do if we're gonna wrap this up. What would you do if you were a legislator? But I think the question that we should ask real quick and then wrap it up is what would you do if you were a craft brewer?
Ooh. Well, first thing I'm going to do is buy a new laptop battery.
Okay.
Then, I think you have to push. You have to get into people's ears. I mean, clearly they're either so incompetent, like we said, or someone is pushing this. Someone is getting money. Someone's getting backing to keep their position for something weird like this to happen. So in some shape or form, there is someone with some type of pulling this string. And I feel like that industry would have to kind of stand up against it, lobby against it, to make sure that it doesn't pass. And it's an odd thing because it's kind of like you almost have to, if it does pass, then you'd have to kind of like cut off your nose to spite your face in a sense of taking that stand of, well, we're not just going to sit here and brew the beer and not have a storefront. We can't sell our product here. You're either going to have to sue. You're probably just going to have to sue the state, honestly.
Yeah, but if you're a brewery that's working on such a thin margin that you don't have like a legal team to do that for you, maybe you can.
Unless we have the associations.
Maybe that you can work with another one, like maybe if you are Cartesian and you can work with Victory and
right,
get it
exactly
done. Cool, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the same approach as the legislators, right? You have an option in front of you that makes sense and you decided to go completely against it, right? And so what makes sense to me is hire a lawyer if you could. I can't do it though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how nonsensical this is. You're telling me I can't sell cold beer. That's fine. The beer I am selling is not in a cooler. But now that I have this cooler that I can't really do anything with anymore, I'm converting that into an ice lounge. And I might be providing a couple different services where where I can't serve cold beer to go. I can serve cold beer though. It's just like, okay, cool. I'm gonna run a special. If you buy a beer here or 2 beers here and buy a 4-pack or a case to go, you get VIP access to this cool lounge. And so while you drink your 2 beers, you can chill out in this lounge area that now I have.
A chill lounge, if you will.
By the way, we'll coat check it complimentary. If you don't want to hang out in the lounge but want to hang out in the bar with everybody else, We'll coat check your beer. It can stay here. Because when you bought the beer, it was warm. But because you're a VIP member, you just coat checked your beer. I didn't sell the cold beer.
I sold warm beer. See that, and you know what? You're right. I think that's the imaginative approach that, now that you're saying that, that's exactly what happened in New Jersey, right? Like you put these ridiculous extraneous requirements in place, and they find a way to meet that requirement in the easiest way possible. With, a tour of the facilities required so that someone can get a drink. All right. Hey, sign here. You took the tour. There it is. Go have a beer. It's like you're gonna find the ways to make it happen.
Right.
And so, I think maybe that's the thing about law, and the thing about like overstepping on law that's so interesting, because you as the legislature that doesn't understand the industry you're regulating very well, because you're just throwing this broad stroke thing to stop something. And so you're throwing all this out there. You're going to put these 10 different requirements in, or stipulations, and you're going to leave out, they're either going to conflict with each other, they're going to leave a massive gap, a wiggle room, or there's going to be so many exceptions to the rule that why do we have the rule anyway in practice? And let that be as it may. I think maybe it's just going to balance itself out in that way. And of course, it's going to suck because the immediate impact will be felt.
It's the people that don't have the wiggle room to fuck around and find out.
Exactly. It's going to take a little bit of collaborative effort. It might take some community in that sense, right? To kind of make sure that it can happen. So it's interesting. I mean, some places, like the really small places that don't can their beer, completely unaffected, right? They can't sell their beer to go anyway. But what does this do to like growler sales? I mean, what are we calling a cold beer?
Yeah, you completely decimate like a portion of like work, right? And it's very interesting. I think there's a lot of other ways that we can go about this too, and I think there's, like always, a room for a bigger episode. But there are a couple things that we need to talk about on the other side of this episode. So I think we should call it for the night. Because
I think my computer sucks.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's real big opportunity for the rest of 2024 for us. So I want to dive into that conversation and hopefully start delivering some things for our audience soon.
Yeah.
So until next time.
Peace.